leader. War Admiral 2.5 for Green.
Next McClellan is in the center of the racetrack. The Admiral sloop drawing alongside again.
War Emblem is still there. War Emblem is pulling away. He's got another gear. Yeah, that's Wesley coming the Derby. Wheel away takes command. Lionheart is all heart. Smarty Jones is all out. And here is the first undefeated winner of the Kentucky Derby since Seattle's low of 1976.
Sun is rising in East Louisville here at Churchill Downs, home of the Kentucky Derby, the 151st Kentucky Derby coming up in just under 2 weeks from today. Of course, the Oaks as well. Another beautiful day in the Ville, the main track fast for morning training today. A little partly cloudy type skies. Sun's supposed to pop out later on this afternoon. Temperatures in the low 50s, but it's a good low 50s. Feels nice out there. Perfect weather for horses getting ready to compete in a race like the Kentucky Derby, which of course is just less than 2 weeks from now on that first Saturday in May. Morning workouts presented by TwinSpires.com. What's happening today? There's a lot happening today. The Band Street American Promise have made their early appearances here at Churchill Downs as they get ready to compete in the Kentucky Derby on that first Saturday in May. Coal Battle, the Mare Daytona, there's some others too possibly that are likely to breeze this morning in their preparations for the Run for the Roses. Coal Battle, a cool story. We'll talk more about him and Admire Daytona. Journalism, I'm told, right about now is supposed to take off from the West Coast. He's going to arrive into Louisville later on today. This afternoon, he has to go through Indianapolis, which is just about 2.5 hours up the road. Journalism figures to be the favorite. And speaking of travel, Luxor Cafe lands in Chicago today. He's got some quarantine requirements, but then he's going to van to Louisville and settle in as he prepares to compete in the 151st Kentucky Derby coming up on that first Saturday in May. And from the Aristides Loft here at Churchill Downs, Travis Stone alongside of Tony Kalo. And Tony, this winter, when you were calling races at Turfway, I texted you and I needed some insight on a pick 5, and your response was, I don't know, these cheaper horses today, I don't really do it for me. What's your excuse this time?
Probably the same. I just picked the wrong horse, right? I gave you some pretty good info that night, though.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't hit it, but whatever, you know.
We missed out on Witt's horse.
Yeah, hearing those race calls in the open has to get your juices flowing.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, though, we should have your race call from last year, especially with the international thriller that belongs amongst the open right
now. I appreciate that. Happy to be here. A lot of fun. This Derby lead up it's intense, but it's a good time, and we always enjoy it. And speaking of good times, Caitlin Free is on the backstretch. She's always fun to work with. I'm a little envious of her ski cap. It's a little chilly this morning. Caitlin's on the backstretch here at Churchill. Caitlin?
Well, I love working with you, Travis. You know that. We're very close friends, and happy to be on with you and Tony this morning. Can't think of two other people I would rather share this show with. And you guys kind of mentioned it, that it was a good 52 degrees. It's not. It's a cold 52 degrees, if you ask me. Perfect for the horses. They prefer a little bit of those cooler temperatures. I do not, but a little bit of a busy morning potentially coming up. There's going to be plenty of gallops, plenty of appearances from some of those Derby and Oaks horses on the track for those designated training times, 7:15 through 7:30. And we do have a couple of work scheduled potentially from Admire Daytona as well as Coal Battle. Coal Battle was the first horse to school in the paddock yesterday. Paddock schooling opened up for Derby and Oaks horses during that designated training time of 15 minutes. So that is something that is still going on. Going to be a lot more of those horses doing that within the next couple of days, I would think. So we'll be able to get some good shots on those. Luxor Cafe has landed in Chicago. He's got 42 hours of quarantine to finish up before he vans to Louisville. And you also mentioned journalism is scheduled to arrive later today. Luxor Cafe is going to be here tomorrow. And then the Baffert Brigade is going to be here the day after that, as well as Quiet Side and Beza. So lots of arrivals coming up, but lots of good things happening here this morning, guys.
42 hours of quarantine. I wonder how they settled on that number.
Yeah, that's kind of a strange, odd number.
It's a little bit better than 43, not quite 41. Let's take a look at the leaderboard for this year's Kentucky Derby. Of course, that's how you get into the race. You got to earn your points. You got to earn your way into the race. Some interesting things up top. We'll talk about some of the bottom contenders here in a moment, but you can see the favorites right there at the top.
Yeah, without a doubt. Journalism will go off as the favorite. The question for second favoritism, Sandman, Sovereignty, I think, and Tapan Street, those are the three that will be vying for that spot.
Journalism does figure to be favored.
Without a doubt, in my opinion.
A couple of invites for the Luxor Cafe and Admire Daytona, but the story on this page and the page after that is built in a couple of the horses on the outside looking in.
Yeah, you know, Baez is the one that we're all hoping can draw in, the runner-up in the Santa Anita Derby, who ran very well, got a better figure than Journalism in the Santa Anita Derby. And California Burrito, who had the awkward trip in the Jeff Ruby, came back with a very nice workout recently.
One of the favorites figures to be Sovereignty for trainer Bill Mott, who of course trained Country House back in 2019. I know this is a horse that you and I have been keen on for a while now.
Yeah, he came to my attention when he won the Street Sense, and he won it in an authoritative fashion. His final furlong was ultra impressive. Big, good-looking individual, covers a lot of ground, levels off beautifully, and that was an awesome Street Sense to conclude his 2-year-old campaign, and I was even more impressed with the comeback bid in the Fountain of Youth.
Are you a horses for courses type guy?
You know, I don't necessarily pin all of my hopes on it, but I definitely factor it in.
It helps. He ran really well here last fall, and of course his races so far this year have been stout. They've also been at Gulfstream Park, a track that tends to favor, in our opinion, horses that want to be a little more forward. You have more time at Churchill Downs to kind of get going in that stretch run.
That's why I thought his Fountain of Youth was so impressive. A favorable trip for front runners at Gulfstream Park, a short run to the wire, and he just leveled off like I haven't seen a horse do in that final furlong. He just was jumping out at the ground. I was like, oh my, I tweeted that day after the San Felipe that we saw the winner of the Kentucky Derby. I just didn't know which one it was.
Yeah, he's done very well. His workout on Saturday was stout too. So
it was.
Sovereignty figures to be, I think it's going to be a lot of people's top pick because I think he's going to offer a little bit of value. He's going to need some pace though. We could talk a lot about the pace because the pace is a very hot topic right now. One of the horses that figures to promote the pace is American Promise, who in the Virginia Derby was on top of Getaway Car the entire way, finished up strongly. Lucas tipped his hand a little bit with that workout the other day.
Yeah, he really asked him for a lot of 125 and change out of the gate, and it wasn't like American Promise was under strong restraint. He was really being asked for his run, and like you said, D. Wayne likes to have his horses forwardly positioned. He has had success with that in the Derby in the past.
The problem is, there's a lot of other horses that want to be forward in here.
Yeah, without a doubt. Rodriguez, East Avenue, and you would have to think both of them are probably quicker than him. He's a big horse, 17 hands.
What helps though, in terms of, and I don't want to say helps, but helps to promote a faster pace, is a lot of times you don't have to be the fastest out there, you just have to be behind the speed and sort of pushing them so those speed horses hear you right behind them and it causes them to accelerate a little bit.
And that's the type of horse, the size of this individual. I think that you wouldn't want him necessarily behind you, pushing on you.
No.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's a stout individual, American Promise. We'll see if he can stick around for all 10 furlongs. He will certainly be involved in the first few. One that might not be necessarily involved in the first few, but is more of a middle mover type horse is Tapan Street. And I'm told Elliot Walden is on hand from Windstar Farm, seeing the proceedings here for Tapan Street today. Figures to be a horse that gets first run on some of those closers, and there's a lot to like about this one.
There is. He seems to be getting better and better with each and every start. I thought he ran well in defeat in the Holy Bull, considering that was his first start around 2 turns, and he made the lead and perhaps just was, a little short for that mile and the 16th that particular day. He put it all together in the Florida Derby. I just get a little concerned when I only see 3 races. I remember Just a Touch came in with a similar profile of very little experience. It didn't go too well for him. I'm not saying it's going to not go well for Tapan Street. He seems to be the part, though. You look at him on the track.
I think the difference between those two is Tapan Street, his experience just seems a little bit more well-rounded. He's had to overcome a little bit. He's shown some greenness. If you watch his replays, with each consecutive start, he gets better. And by all accounts, he is training spectacular. And, Brad Cox, he's pretty good at winning races at Churchill.
He certainly is.
Luis Saez is going to ride Tapan Street. We'll see how he does in terms of the pace. Also in terms of pace, and of course, in my opinion, is going to take a ton of money. Arguably, is going to be second favorite, and that's Sandman, a distinguished gray son of Tapit. Hard to miss him. We're thankful for gray horses, those of us that call races. Second favorite off the pace, Sandman.
And Metallica's already sending Metallica gear to the barn, so
oh yeah,
imagine what it's going to be like as we get a little closer and closer, and especially on the first Saturday in May.
I want $1 for every time somebody utters the phrase "Enter Sandman" between now and the first Saturday in May.
That won't be part of your race call?
Never say never. Sometimes you got to give the fans what they want.
Yeah.
He's obviously a very pretty horse. Seems to do things pretty well when things go his way. The problem is he's got some running lines where it's like, man, where were you that day? And a couple of those were right here at Churchill.
Yeah, 0 for 3 here locally with only 1 third place finish. I did watch the Street Sense replay the other day, and it seemed like he was finally figuring it out at the wire. He has a couple of concerns. He doesn't really get away from the starting gate the greatest. I know he broke much better in the Arkansas Derby, but perhaps if he goes back to some of those previous races, the Kentucky Derby is a race in which you do not want to have issues at the gate.
And even in the stretch of the Arkansas Derby, it's not like he ran in a straight line.
Yeah, he was all over the place, indicating, they talk about the Tapit blood. And how you elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my friend Norm Cassie has always thought that Tapits are going to have a hard time in a race like the Derby. They're going to succeed a lot, like in a race like the Belmont, where there's just a longer time to kind of get going and settle in. No margin for error in 10 furlongs on the first Saturday in May. So you got to think about that when it comes to Sandman. Sandman's in the Kentucky Derby. Built is in if they want to be in. It's whether or not they want to be in. He garnered some headlines earlier in the year, and they've kind of fizzled out since.
Yeah, he kind of made his presence felt in the Gun Runner, and he ran very well in the Lecompton defeat, but his 2 subsequent starts have been a little subpar. A 3rd place finish in the Risen Star, getting within contention at the 8th pole in the Louisiana Derby. I have my question marks with the distance a little bit. Just his current form, to be honest. He may be peaked a little too early.
Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners involved with Built are also involved with journalism, so I think they have a little bit of an insurance policy. Should they all make some plans to get to Louisville that first Saturday May if something were to go awry with journalism? Hopefully not, of course. Built currently in. We'll see if he actually runs. In and running is Coal Battle. Obviously, this story has sort of garnered a lot of headlines as well. Lonnie Briley, when you listen to his interviews, and I particularly enjoyed his interview here the other day on this show, it was just authentic, it was raw, it was honest. It's not a guy that's sitting there trying to sell you anything. He just told you about his horse, Coal Battle.
Yeah, a lot of humility from Lonnie, and a very soft-spoken individual. Hard not to root for him and this horse, Coal Battle. A littler horse than some of the others in this affair, but boy, he has a big, big heart. I thought he ran well in defeat in the Arkansas Derby. The pace was absolutely furious. The jockey moved a little too soon. Lonnie mentioned that. I commend Lonnie for keeping Juan aboard. Could have been the opportunity to say, hey, we're going to the biggest race of our career. We're going to have to leave you out of this. I've seen other trainers do that over the years.
When you watch his replays, Coal Battle, he has tactical speed. So he's quick enough early to put himself in position, an underrated component when it comes to the Derby, because that run to the first turn is so significant. You cannot get shuffled out. So if you have some tactical speed, you can get position, then you can settle in and find your stride. I expect him to be 6th, 7th, 8th early on, sort of around the Tapan Street area, maybe a little bit behind him, and get first run at some of those deep closes.
I agree, and the thing I like about Coal Battle, he has shown that he has a sudden burst. He has a good little quick turn of foot, which could help in a big bulky field like the Kentucky Derby. His turn of foot could get him in and out of trouble.
There's a lot of variables at play in the Kentucky Derby. We're going to talk through those and many others. We've got some interviews lined up today that I know we're interested in hearing about, and we'll have more of that, plus some other horses and some workers this afternoon. I should say this morning, Tony, it's early here at Churchill Downs.
Place your bets with Twin Spires Handicapping Insights, our expert picks, or just by choosing a name that catches your eye. No matter how you pick your horse, bet with Twin Spires. Get your money back if your horse finishes 2nd or 3rd in eligible races.
The Kentucky Derby. Woodford Reserve Bourbon is a spectacle for the senses.
And good morning and welcome back to Churchill Downs Morning Workouts presented by TwinSpires.com as the beat rolls on to Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby number 151 coming up in, 11 or 12 days? I don't know, I've lost track, Tony. Main track is fast. The temperature's still at 52 degrees. Caitlin says it's a cold 52. I don't know, I don't mind a little 52 degree morning.
Well, Caitlin's a slighter frame than both of us. Us big boys, we like it a little cooler.
Yeah, the colder the better. Caitlin Freeze on the backstretch here at Churchill Downs, joined by many. It's a busy morning. We've got some workers. We've got Cole Battle slated to work at Meyer Daytona. LaCara potentially working out as well. But before we get to those, Caitlin Freeze got a special guest who probably had the ride of a lifetime last year. Caitlin, what do you got?
Well, thanks, Travis. I'm joined here on the backside by a man that needs no introduction, is probably sick of us in the media at this point. Brian Hernandez Jr., winner of last year's Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks. What are you planning applying this year in the 2025 editions that you really learned winning both of those races last year in 2024?
Just hoping we have a fast horse again this year. That's what it all boils down to. You need the right horse on the right day, and it seems like with Burnham Square and the filly and Oaks on the Friday, they look like two horses coming into it on the right way. So we're excited.
Burnham Square is the one I'm going to touch on first. Obviously, a very, very different horse from last year's winner, Mystic Dan, that you were on board. What type of a post position draw do you think is going to be most beneficial for a horse like him?
It's just one of those things. You don't want to draw way outside. You'd rather. In my case, I've always kind of favored being drawn down on the inside, just where you can save at least ground around that first turn, and then after that you can kind of figure out your trip from there. So the nice thing about it now is the way they do the draw is they do it 7 days out. So once we do the draw next Saturday, we'll have a better idea of a whole week of planning and kind of figuring out our game plan.
You were on board Burnham Square for that work over the weekend. He was a little bit amped up early on. You got him to be able to level out really, really nicely in the concluding stages of that work. Is this something that's pretty typical of him?
I guess so. That was the first time I'd ever been on him. But I've ridden the family, and his mom, she was the same way. She'd get a little high and a little cranked up getting to the pole. But once she got in her works and her races, she was getting a nice rhythm and cruise along. And that's what he did last week as well. He was a little amped up with horses running up behind him as he was getting to the pole. But once we got to the pole, he settled in nicely and cruised around there and did it the right way.
Maybe a little something to do with the weather, because I think it was pretty humid that morning too.
Yeah, I mean, if you see, he got a little sweaty on his neck, and that was just more of the humidity and stuff like that. But he's the type of horse where he's learning his lessons through races, and you're going to see a better horse with each race that goes along.
Of course, you were with Torpedo Anna and Kenny McPeak during the Oaks last year en route to a Horse of the Year campaign that really started in the Kentucky Oaks. You're back with Kenny again this year with Take Charge, My Lady. What does she really need to do to kind of be in the mix and take another step forward in this year's race?
She's just we have to give her the right trip. I think in the Ashland the other day, we were a little unfortunate around the second turn we got hung up a little longer than we needed to, and she came with a long run, but it was just a little too late. So I think on Friday of Oaks, we just need to give her the right trip. And in the same case, we still have to wait to see where we're drawing in the race and what post position we have. And then Kenny and I will sit down and kind of figure out what we need to do.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. Best of luck the rest of the morning. Probably got a busy one coming up. And I'm excited to watch this Netflix thing that, to my knowledge, is already out. I thought it wasn't going to be till later.
Yeah, it's exciting. It was a lot of fun to film last year, and hopefully it's well received so we can do it again.
I'm sure it will be. Thanks.
Thank you.
Brian Hernandez joining me out here this morning. And as I mentioned, not only a Derby and Oaks winner, but now a Netflix star at this point.
I think he undersold that. He says you got to have the horse. I don't think last year, his ride was a difference maker.
Yeah, he rode a great race on the Derby winner, no question about it. Torpedo Anna was a little bit easier. All he had to do was get out there and go on the engine, but he earned his money in the Derby.
I think Burnham Square is going to appreciate having Brian in the saddle. He rides. Those of us who have been following Kentucky racing, we know what Brian's capable of. I think he's been one of the most underrated riders of the past 10 or 15 or so years, and it was great to finally see him break through with that. He had won the Breeders' Cup Classic, but that was a career-defining moment for him.
Yeah, obviously I've only been in the state of Kentucky for a year. I wasn't really as familiar with him as the rest of all of you, but I was thoroughly impressed. And just throughout the whole year, I was like, wow, this kid can ride. He's a very good jockey.
He could do it again this year.
He could.
He's got 2 live mounts in both the Oaks and the Derby. Speaking of familiarity, Admire Daytona, a horse that we might not be overly familiar with, had to dig up some replays, and I don't speak Japanese, so I had to figure out what those websites were saying to me, but I was able to find some replays on Admire Daytona. He's got some speed.
Yeah, he has some speed, although he wasn't able to utilize that speed on the 23rd of February. That was the last time he faced off with his other Japanese rival, Luxor Cafe. He showed a lot of heart when winning the UAE Derby, I thought. He looked defeated to me in mid-stretch, and he just showed a tremendous will to want to succeed. I was impressed with that run.
Forever Young last year was well touted on his way into the Kentucky Derby, and arguably if he run that race 100 times, he wins plenty of them. These particular contenders from Japan aren't as well touted. In fact, I might argue they're a little bit more under the radar. And I don't know if that's just a reaction to last year and Forever Young being, so touted, or maybe these aren't quite up to the top level that we have, but discount them at your own risk.
Yeah, I believe you said it last year that we will see a winner from Japan in the Kentucky Derby. I think, what did you maybe say, within 5 or 10 years, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I think so. It could happen. Luxor Cafe might be the one I prefer out of these two.
I would agree with that. I was impressed with his recent race. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of that race, but he showed a tremendous turn of foot, good acceleration off the turn, running away from his rivals.
We appreciate you showing the resistance to pronouncing some Japanese here at such an early hour. East Avenue, I texted you last summer.
Yes, you did.
The buzz was out on him in July, and he delivered, and then things just kind of went off the rails for a bit.
Yeah, well, we're kind of learning something, that there's a rumor going around that he just doesn't seem to really thrive too well outside of Kentucky. You look at both of his subpar efforts, one in California in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, the comeback that is a 3-year-old in Louisiana in the Risen Star. Well, you know what? He's back in Kentucky, and he ran well with the blinkers on in defeat in the Bluegrass.
He ran and a race he arguably needed. If you look through his PPs, the last legitimate sort of start to finish race he ran was at Keeneland in October. He stumbled so badly in the Breeders' Cup. He stopped quickly at the fairgrounds. So he probably needed that Bluegrass run as well. I mean, obviously they wanted to get something out of it. They sent him to the lead. So I think pace is a question mark there. Kevin Kirstein, who does publications and media here at Churchill, said he was out training earlier today. They kind of alter his training late and early. He could be on the engine. I also feel like this is one of those conversations where everybody thinks he's going to be on the lead, and they're going to break from the gates, and he's going to find a stalking trip and not necessarily be gunned to the front.
I would love to see him be able to show that. Maybe if he could just have a little bit of reserved energy initially, so then he could finish up a little bit. I loved the placing he was at in the Risen Star. He just couldn't quite come through. As you mentioned, he probably needed that race. It was a 1 and 8 too. It wasn't like it was a mile race and he backpedaled. 1 and 8, long distance. He's a big-bodied horse.
Yeah.
Like you said, he seems like he's getting more and more each and every start and every work.
All of those Godolphin horses are good-looking individuals.
They really are, aren't they?
An amazing breeding program. East Avenue figures to be a major player in the early portions of the Kentucky Derby. Render Judgment can kind of make Peak do it again. He's on the outside looking in. Mixed signals whether or not he's going to run in the Kentucky Derby, but he came out of the racetrack for the first time yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of him. I guess the one thing going in his favor is his lone win was right here at Churchill Downs around 2 turns. He was no match for First Resort in the subsequent start. He was no match for Built. He runs a distant second. You called the race in the Virginia Derby. A non-factor in the Bluegrass. Boy, seems like a 99-1 shot.
Yeah, well, how long ago was Rich Strike there, Tony?
Yeah, I know.
It is the Kentucky Derby. That's why this race is so fascinating, because so much can happen. There's things that happen all throughout the race, and sometimes just the improbable can find a way through down inside and scare everybody. That's for the Kentucky Derby. Don't forget, though, the day before is the Kentucky Oaks, shaping up to be, in my opinion, a great betting race this year. There's a lot of different ways that you can go.
Yeah, Good Cheer will probably be the favorite. I think that's a no-brainer. She is 6 for 6. I think there are a few gals that offer some value. Quiet Side, Tenma, Simply Joking has been working very well. It's a very, very intriguing race from a wagering standpoint.
I know that Good Cheer is going to be the favorite, and she deserves it. She's done very little wrong. She's run very well. She's got the right running style to be tactical and be in the spot wherever she needs to be. But it's not like she towers over them on numbers.
Yeah, no, her numbers are not. They're average. What I think I heard that her Thoroughgraph number's a 3, if I've heard that correctly, and some of the other ones are right there. In fact, Tenma actually has a figure that is lower.
Yeah. Drexel Hill for trainer Whit Beckman. Whit Beckman has really burst on the scene with his own operation.
Yeah.
But it's not like he's not been around the game for a bit.
Yeah, I was very unfamiliar with him. Apparently, I guess you sent me some info.
Yeah, started out with Todd.
Yeah.
He worked for Walter Binder back in the day. He
Right.
worked for Chad Brown for a minute, and of course he had Anna Marie last year in the Derby.
Right, and Anna Marie was working sensationally, just didn't get away from the starting gate. But you know, Drexel Hill I thought ran well in the Busher Invitational. Now, granted, I don't know about the competition, and that was a one-turn, 1 mile affair. So we'll have to see it. And was outworked, I thought, the other day by Simply Joking. Big shout out to Kyle Zorn, part of the ownership line here with Drexel Hill. Shout out right there.
Yeah, there you go, squeezing one in. The thing with Drexel Hill was she started her career at Woodbine, and you have to sometimes decipher whether or not those horses are going to translate that form from synthetic to dirt. Final Gambit, similar, has been on synthetic for its entire career, is going to try dirt for the first time in the Derby.
Yes, seems to be training very well over the dirt, but it's always a question mark how they're going to handle it. You know, the kickback is a lot different on dirt than it is on versus Tapeta.
You call the races a Turfway, which is obviously on synthetic racetrack. It's dirt here. What other sorts of things are you looking for those horses translating that form from dirt to synthetic, or from synthetic to dirt, I should say?
You know, obviously you want to see them get over it well. You don't want to see them tossing their head about. Kind of a tough question, but
running style.
Running style, I'd prefer to see a horse from off the pace. You know, but
like Final Gambit.
Yeah.
Are you picking him?
No, I'm not.
Okay, he's not picking Final Gambit. Tony likes to bet. We like to bet, let's be honest. We're not in this game because we like to play checkers. And you can get involved, of course, at twinspires.com, but new this year is the $250,000 Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. Have you played in some tournaments before?
I have played in some tournaments. They're fun, that's for sure.
It is, they're not fun, they're intense.
They are.
And they're a blast. I've got some of my best friends in life through the tournament scene. So you can get involved and participate in this year's Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge, the official tournament of the Kentucky Derby, $250,000 on the line. You can see the qualifying schedule there on the right. It doesn't take much. What's that saying? Chip in a chair?
Yeah.
And you can get involved, and it's a totally different spin on playing the races. You're not only betting the horses and trying to find the winner and putting together the right sort of plays, but you're then competing against the others on the leaderboard too.
And there's so much at stake. Look at all the seats that are available, all of the money. This is a great betting challenge, equivalent to the Breeders' Cup betting challenge, in my opinion.
It's on its way. It's a great way to kick off the tournament and build it from here. And of course, you can get involved at twinspires.com, who happens to sponsor this show here this morning.
Very nice.
At Churchill Downs. A beautiful morning. You can see the sun is creeping up. We've got Derby and Oaks horses coming up, some workers, and plenty more to come here at 700 Central Avenue.
As they head to the backstretch, it's a tight pack.
He's going to pull ahead. The Twin Spires expert picks were all optimistic.
You've got the best speed rating in the field. Don't fail me now.
Man, I love this horse's name.
And from far behind, here comes Frank. It's neck and neck. Frank is winning. Frank wins.
No matter how you pick your horse, bet with Twin Spires, the official betting partner of the Kentucky Derby. Get your money back if your horse finishes second or third in eligible races.
And once again, good morning from the Twin Spires here at Churchill Downs. Morning workouts presented by twinspires.com. As we roll along, we head toward that designated training time for the Oaks and the Derby horses. If you don't have one of those saddle cloths, you gotta stay at the barn for a little bit longer. The time dedicated to those horses to have the racetrack to themselves. The racetrack they'll be racing over in the Oaks and the Derby 1 week from this Friday and Saturday. Opening day entries are drawing today.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Yeah, no turning back now. Here we go.
We're committed.
Yeah, no turning back as we take a look at, I believe that's Coal Battle and Caitlin Free, who's down there trackside on the backstretch. Caitlin, Coal Battle, what do you see?
Yep, Cole Battle's getting ready to head out onto the track proper here in just a moment. He is walking up here through the Lucas Gap. Admire Daytona just passed by me. Looks like he's going to go school in the chute for a little bit. I believe both of these horses are slated to potentially work this morning. There is Lonnie Briley leading Cole Battle and Bethany Taylor out here onto the track. I think, and I have not heard otherwise, that this horse is definitely going to work here this morning. Admire Daytona still not overly sure about this one. Of course, Cole Battle ended up schooling in the paddock yesterday as well as having that gallop. And this is a horse, to me, I've spent a decent amount of time around him. He's one that has been in this gap throughout the most part of these training sessions. This horse is so intelligent. He just takes it all in as soon as he gets out onto the track. I was really impressed with the way he schooled in the paddock yesterday. So this is a horse that I have no question marks about at all when it comes to the mental toughness for a race like the Kentucky Derby. There's a few others that maybe I have question marks about, including Sandman, who's coming up here onto the chute, getting ready to head out to the track as well. I see Lacara just behind him, but Cole Battle, we're expecting works from him and potentially Admire Daytona this morning.
Thanks, Caitlin. There's a look at Cole Battle. You know, Tony, I watched Lonnie Briley walk this horse out, and you can't help but wonder, for a fellow like him, you know, this is the horse of a lifetime, and here you are leading your horse out for what I would probably be one of his last, if not his last workout before the biggest race of his life and your life too.
It's pretty awesome. I think I might have said it on the opening Derby work show. Lonnie Briley, kind of reminiscent of Art Sherman when he was able to get to the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, Art had a major player. Not that Cole Battle isn't California Chrome for Art. I knew Art for a lot of years in Northern California, and it's pretty cool when you see somebody who's devoted their whole life to something finally get to reap the benefits and enjoy the time. And he's relishing it in, and I'm very happy for him.
And I don't know whether or not they're not allowed to actually step out yet or not, but I find this interesting too. He's just kind of sitting there taking it all in, and you know, he's a horse, he's an animal. We're animal guys. Like you know, they have a personality too.
Yeah, they have lots of personalities, and you know, for him to be so composed is pretty cool. He didn't have a pony next to him, and he's just sitting there enjoying it. And he's probably kind of like his trainer. He's like, hey, look at me. I'm here at Churchill Downs. This is pretty awesome.
You saw Sandman briefly there,
yes.
And now we're on Lacara, who I believe, according to Kevin Kirsten, is slated to work here during this special designated training time. Both Cole Battle and Lacara have plenty of starts under their belt, 8 and 9 starts respectively. In my opinion, I like to see this, battle-tested, hardened horses leading into the biggest races of their career.
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of a mix, you know, of recency. It seems like horses with less experience that's been the campaign to try to get to the Derby. It's kind of cool to see horses with 7, 8 starts, 9 starts, you know, prolonged campaigns, sustained campaigns, keep going.
Lacara, a little bit of an in-and-out form.
Yeah.
She ran well last year, and then she kind of had a couple of clunkers here or there, but the Ashland was a notable improvement for her.
Yeah, she ran big that particular day. She had the inside, and sometimes inside speed is very dangerous at Keeneland. She was all alone, really uncontested, and tended to her business. I thought she ran well. I've been a fan of her for quite some time. I picked her in her second career start. I picked her in the Pocahontas. I wish she would somehow have the ability to rate like she did in the Pocahontas. I don't know if that was just she got away poorly that particular day, or it was a one-turn affair. Sometimes the tactics are different with longer and shorter races.
Long run up the chute here at Churchill Downs. Yeah. Cole Battle was still kind of sitting there hanging out. It's my type of horse. Hang out and just chill for a minute. Cole Battle, we'll see what he ends up doing today. Tistastic, of course, there was a lot of chatter about his workout the other day. Tistastic, the one in the darkest jacket, I'm told, in front.
Yeah.
A lot of chatter about his workout the other day. I kind of, especially when you hear that Steve was raving about his training leading up to it. But if you really dig deeper, and I tweeted about this, sometimes you have horses that are good workhorses, and sometimes you have horses that are workhorses, not necessarily going to shine bright in the morning.
You know, I might have been a prisoner of the moment. I might have been one that kind of got it started. I expected Tistastic to outwork Publisher, not knowing that Publisher had done better stuff in the mornings than Tiztastic. And as you just mentioned, certain horses are just better in the morning. Perhaps Publisher has a quicker turn of foot than Tiztastic, who's more of a steady Eddie grinder.
Yeah.
I just expected him to get on level terms and kind of kick away. And when he didn't, and when Publisher was looking back, I was like, wow, Publisher I thought worked better. But
both of those horses have nothing but steady improvement in their PPs. Flying Mohawk, you've seen Flying Mohawk. He ran second to Final Gambit. We talked about Whit Beckman earlier in the show. This is his charge in this year's Kentucky Derby. Chances?
You know, it's hard to say the chances. He's never run at Churchill Downs. He's never run on a dirt racetrack. I have heard Whit saying in an ideal world, it will rain like there is no rain on the first Saturday in May. And if so, he was smiling like there was no tomorrow.
No offense, Whit. You're the only one that thinks
I know,
that.
right? From a race caller standpoint, with 20 horses, the last thing you want to see is a sloppy racetrack.
Yeah, forget about it. And all those silks turning muddy brown and indistinguishable. Flying Mohawk, he's going to come from off the pace. We've talked a lot about the pace. That is a benefit. And if you go back and look through past charts of Kentucky Derbies, getting into third and fourth sometimes is just about being the last man standing and not necessarily about raw ability.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I heard Bill Mott talking about how you could run the Derby many, many times and you might get an eventual different winner for many of the outcomes. It's not necessarily the best horse that wins the race. It's the horse who gets the best trip.
Don't get me on my soapbox, Tony, about that. That's what makes the Derby the Derby. You know, the best horse doesn't always have to win. If that happened in horse racing, it might be a boring sport.
That's true.
Admired Daytona has been doing some things there in the chute. They have unconventional training patterns. It sort of, I don't want to say it makes us uncomfortable, but it makes us like, kind of raise an eyebrow.
Yeah, I think it came to attention a few years ago when we saw horses doing this figure eight pattern in the chute. It's like, what's going on? Is this the Olympics, and is this Dorothy Hamill?
That's a pull.
I'm showing my age. I showed it with Giacomo the other day.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Travis.
You're
that
good.
Wasn't rehearsed.
It's early. We talked about, so Cole Battle finally decided to come on the racetrack.
Yeah.
Good for him. I'm becoming a big fan of this horse. I like that chill lifestyle that he seems to lead. He's supposed to work today. Quickly on Admired Daytona, he has some good races on paper. He could possibly show some speed, though, and I don't know if you really want to show a ton of speed in a race like this.
I would agree. It seems like the tactical or the horses that are coming from far back are the ones that you kind of want to be keeping your eyes on.
I did write down for Admired Daytona my notes that he's a bit of a game and gritty horse, which is not nothing in a 20-horse field.
Yeah, when I'm handicapping and you always see that gameness or the game comment in a running line, it makes you take a second look because it's something that not every horse has.
I wonder what Cole Battle's going to do today as he gets ready for the Kentucky Derby.
You know what's funny about Cole Battle is he had come off back-to-back victories, and I was more impressed with his defeat in the Arkansas Derby than his victory because, you know, we know the jockey moved too soon, and you could just see it. It was like, gosh, just wait, you're going too soon. And it's not easy to be the first one to make that run into such a furious pace and then sustain it.
Yeah.
He's a pretty cool horse. He's got that quick turn of foot. He can get out of trouble just like that.
Kind of reminds me of, remember when Normandy Invasion made that early move in the Derby? Turned for home with the lead and got run down. You can't do that. You have to be more patient.
Well, you know what's so funny is most dirt races, you can make that move and win, but you can't do it in the Kentucky Derby.
That 10th furlong weighs on you quickly.
And the pace is just usually so hot that if you are making that move, you're probably going to come up empty at the 8th pole.
Yeah, you need to be a little bit more patient. There's plenty of time, even though it feels like there's not when you're in the race of your life. Not sure how far Cole Battle's going. I am told that LaCara and Admired Daytona are going to go 4 furlongs or half miles, as they, in racetrack vernacular, going to half, as they would say. Cole Battle looking pretty good here.
Yeah, no, I think Lonnie was mentioning earlier in the week how this horse kind of swells up when he gets on the racetrack. It's pretty cool. I guess it'd be kind of like a prized fighter who all of a sudden is a little bit bigger when he's ready to go to battle.
I said it earlier, I really enjoyed his interview the other day because he just gave us a lot of insight into the horse. He had to saddle him on the walk, which means, you know, a lot of times in the paddock, these horses will stand still, they'll put the saddle on, the horse just kind of takes things in. But every once in a while they get cantankerous and they don't want to cooperate and you have to walk them while you saddle them.
And that's not easy. You can see how difficult it is even for the valets who do this on a day in, day out experience. And, you know, Cool horse. He's ready to rock and roll. He looks beautiful this morning. I think, you know, I'm not the greatest with visualizing the beauty of a horse. I think they're all beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to learn over the years from various people, whether they be trainers, bloodstock agents, those sorts, and it always comes back to it's just like a dog or a cat. You can tell when they're feeling good. You can tell when they're happy and they're within themselves. And I mean, obviously, this was a horse as he went to begin this workout. He looked like he was feeling good.
Yeah, he showed no nervous energy leading up to the move. He has quickly got into it, and he's getting over the racetrack very, very nicely.
One thing I'll point out, and I know you know this as a race caller, one of the things we have been trained to look at are the ears.
Without a doubt. Ears are a very important factor. I look for them in the post parade as well. I've caught many winners over the years. And then when watching workouts, you're trying to watch the rider's hands. How much action, how much are they really asking of the horse? Bethany's just kind of niggled on him a little bit here at about the 8th pole, but nothing strong. I mean, the arms aren't pumping. The horse is doing it within himself.
Those ears are back, which means the horse is engaged and focused and sort of, in the moment. When the ears are forward, they're a little bit more relaxed and chill, having a good time. If you watch over the years, you can watch some of the big mares. Was it Latruska? Whenever she ran, her ears were always straight up in the air and forward, showing a horse that was happy and having a good time. That's one thing to look at. When you see their ears back, it's like with a dog. Their ears are back. They're not uncomfortable, but they're in the moment.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Lacara, there's Cold Battle finishing up.
There are the ears.
Work, and there you go. Ears forward for Lacara for trainer Mark Cash. She's going 4 furlongs. We talked about she's got some speed. She's probably going to be forward.
Yeah, I would definitely think 3 of her 4 career victories have all been in front-running fashion for the most part, if I'm seeing that correctly, yes. And especially around the 2 turn, she wants to be there. And a nice, easy half-mile move, considering she just pretty much raced recently in the Ashland. And, hey, at least she's entering this one on a positive note. 3 races so far as a 3-year-old have resulted in 2 trips to the winner's circle.
It is Lacara. I keep saying Lacara. We'll get that right. We got time to get that right because Cara Caterina the Dam reminds me of Cara Raffaella. Cold Battle went 47.4, by the way. Kevin Kirstein rolling in with some updates for me on that, so appreciate that. KK, here's Lacara finishing up. She's done okay at Churchill before. I worry about the pace with her, but it is hard to argue with that notable improvement last time.
Yeah, she does run a career best figure in the Ashland, which is good. She's coming up to this race in fine fashion. She has good blood, street sense out of a Bernardini mare. We will just have to see how she responds to other pace pressure. Yeah. Horses, when they have things ideally to themselves, they'll run career best numbers.
She goes in 46 for Lacara, so she went faster than Cold Battle. Another reason you got to put them in context. You could not really have told that or derive the times just from watching them in isolation. That's when it helps when they run in company.
And Lacara is a front runner, so we do expect front runners, forward type horses, to work faster than horses that sit.
They're sharper. They're sharper by nature. There's Admire Daytona sitting on the racetrack.
Okay.
He's supposed to work a half too, and I'm told this is built.
Yeah.
He's in the Derby if he wants to be.
And we talked about it. It's hard. You're an owner. You've been owning horses for many years, and you finally have a horse who has enough points to qualify for the Derby. I mean, just to say, hey, I did have a horse run in the Kentucky Derby. I can't fault them if they decide to run. It's easy to manage another person's horse from the outside. I've been very good managing friends' horses many years. I get my own, and they're always mismanaged. So looking at this horse, I would not run him in the Kentucky Derby. I wouldn't run Owen Almighty in the Kentucky Derby either, but it's easy for me to say that. I'm not part of the ownership.
And like we just talked about a few minutes ago, a lot of things can happen in the Derby.
They can.
Every once in a while, things can fall into your lap. His gun runner was stout. He did beat Render Judgment in October of last year at Keeneland to break his maiden. The problem is he's just been unable to find that form. He did cycle back to the number he won the gun runner with in the Risen Star, but he was beaten by 9 lengths. And with Magnitude, of course, is not in the Kentucky Derby, and also Chunk of Gold was ahead of him, who is in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, and he's lost significant ground from the 8th pole to the wire in his last 2 starts, and you don't want to be losing ground from the 8th pole to the wire in the Kentucky Derby.
You gotta, yeah, if you're doing that, you're not winning.
You're not winning. You're not gonna. Travis will not be calling you.
You need to be gaining ground or maintaining your ground. Wayne Catalano.
He just seems like he's a horse that might have peaked earlier in his 3-year-old campaign versus, others.
He might not fit the Derby, he certainly would fit the Pat Day Mile.
I would definitely agree with that. I like Foundation, and he has 4 2-turn races, 2 mile and a 16th, a mile and 8th, and a mile and 3/16. He would fit beautifully in the Pat Day Mile.
Yeah, he's by Hardspun, who turned for home with the lead in the Kentucky Derby.
He did.
Got run down by Street Sense.
That was a pretty good group.
That was one of my favorite derbies.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite Triple Crowns. The 97, the 07, probably 2 of my favorites. The Damsires Curlin, who came on with a little bit of a run, oh, by the way, in that same Derby.
Yeah, he did. How many races did Curlin have leading up to was that his 4th career start in the Kentucky
Wasn't his
Derby?
second in the...
Maybe it was his 3rd?
He won that race at Gulfstream, and then he won the Arkansas Derby, right? Was that his 2nd start? So that would have been his 3rd start in the Derby? Did he have one more? Tony, that was a long time ago.
I know, and longer time for me. I'm older than you.
Yeah. Okay, so we also were supposed to have a workout from Admired Daytona today, and perhaps that's what's about to start.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he's really, really slow to get into this work. So I wonder if that will have anything to say with his eventual final time. It depends on how far he's working and when he's going to kick it into high gear. But boy, he's a lazy individual right now leading up to this work. Look at him. He seems like he's galloping right at this particular juncture.
I mean, it's different the way they do this. It's just, we're just not used to it. It's not necessarily right or wrong. They've obviously had a ton of success around the world in some of these big races, more so in recent years. But this is the way they do things.
Yeah, this is the way they do things, and it's hard to fault their success. But with that being said, perhaps you maybe need to get a little bit more conventional when trying to win the Kentucky Derby. But, this is just how they do it. He's now starting to pick up his stride, and I don't know if the work has started. I would have to assume it has. It looked like it started a little bit past the 3/8 or the 5/16, but we've seen other horses seem to have a lot more energy than this work.
If you're looking to gamble on the Kentucky Derby, which you, of course, should be, try and dig up the race last year in Japan on November the 23rd, where he and Luxor Cafe absolutely throw it down. They finished more than 12 lengths ahead of the rest of the field. Kind of an interesting heads-up competition between 2 of the Japanese runners in this year's Kentucky Derby. It was a great race in and of itself. You'll enjoy it if you're a racing fan. But their career paths kind of diverged from there. Luxor Cafe, in my opinion, sort of developed and went a little bit more forward. Admired Daytona has obviously had some success as well. But that race is a good way to see both of them in action at the same time, a dozen lengths ahead of the rest of the field. I'm getting a text here from Admired Daytona. His time, 53.2.
Yeah, you could tell it was really slow. I was about to say 39 seconds for 3 furlongs, 53 and change for a half mile. Obviously, they weren't looking for much. They just wanted him to stretch his legs and get over the oval.
Cole Battle went 47-4, out in 1:04. LaCara 58-3, out in 1:12-1. For those of you that like to keep track of those workout times, Caitlin, what you got?
I think this is pretty typical of some of the Japanese workouts, and this is kind of really what was planned. Getting something that is quote-unquote published, but a little bit on the slower side. He's going to be a horse that's going to get a lot of his stamina and a lot of that fitness from long gallops. He's been galloping between 1.5 miles to 2 miles pretty much every single day. So a couple of these workouts, maybe a 2-minute lick or something else like this is going to happen. Another couple of times leading up to a race like the Kentucky Derby, he had a pretty hard race that he got a lot of fitness out of in the UAE Derby, excuse me. So I think something like this and maybe doing this a couple more times is definitely going to be the plan for Admired Daytona. And I'm anxious to see what ends up happening with Luxor Cafe. These are, of course, different trainers, so I do expect the training styles to be slightly different.
Admired Daytona broke the best he has broken yet in that UAE Derby. He had a couple of stumbles and bobbles in some of those early career starts, so he's kind of rounding into peak breaking form, which of course helps.
I like what Caitlin said there. You know, the UAE Derby, he was so game, and it might, you know, that was a hard race, so why not come back first move? Just very nice and easy.
Don't forget it was a mile 3/16 too.
Very good point.
Okay, so here's Sovereignty. I did some more work on him last night. Man, this horse, he just feels like a lot of things are falling into his lap in terms of both the pace, his ability here at Churchill Downs, that most recent workout. I think the money comes in on him pretty hard.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I was hoping he was going to drift up a little bit, thinking, you know, maybe some of the fans will see that Tapan Street just beat him by a pretty good little length and a quarter. I loved his Fountain of Youth. I love the street sense. I have Journalism ranked number 1. I have Sovereignty ranked number 2. From a betting perspective, Sovereignty is the one that I want to kind of go with.
He might not be a shorter price than Sandman, because I think Sandman's got it's like the My Boy Jack thing going, right? Where the Metallica tie-in, the gray horse, you know, Mark Cassey always says all the right things when the mic's on him. Certainly going to garner some attention. He just won his most recent race, got Jose Ortiz. Like, there's all sorts of things pointing towards Sandman taking some money, but I do think Sovereignty is one that's going to take some too. 8-1, maybe.
I think 8-1 is more than generous. I mean, here's a horse who was the beaten favorite in the Florida Derby, and he was gaining ground on Tapan Street at the wire, and I don't think he was really geared up for his best run. As I said earlier in the show, I thought his Fountain of Youth, the final furlong, the way he just jumped out of the ground to a horse that has ability and had the setup. That horse was supposed to win the Fountain of Youth, River Thames, and Sovereignty was able to gun him down.
Hard to do at Gulfstream. We've talked about it. That's a short stretch there in a race that favors some speed. There's that first turn grandstand. It's pretty cool when that building's filled up when they hit that first turn on first Saturday in May.
No, it's pretty awesome. You know, another thing back to Sovereignty as well, I was watching the Florida Derby. He was very, very wide into the first turn, and that's usually never good at Gulfstream Park.
It is tough to overcome that. The problem is he's going to have to be wide here. Unless you're going to have someone like Calvin Burrell or Brian Hernandez negotiate these, you know, heroic inside-outside ground-saving type moves, you have to make wide moves.
Yeah, and wide moves are usually a cleaner line to the leader line. You know, the path is much more clear than when you're on the inside trying to save ground. Things have to really go in your favor with that inside trip.
My one quibble on Sovereignty was the figure kind of backed off a little bit in the Florida Derby. I wanted to see a bit more progression there. Okay, let's go back to Colby. You can see his time there, 47-4. And KK texted me the out time. It was 1:04. So not as quick as LeCara went this morning, not as slow as Admired Daytona did. I'm not going to speak for Lonnie Briley, but there was nothing about this move that would deter me.
I agree. I was just going to say the same thing. They have to be very excited from what they got out of him this morning. A happy horse with a nice stride, not really asked for much, finished up with interest. He's a cool horse. Boy, it'd be pretty cool to see him get there for his connections. And I think he gets a nice trip. He gets first run. Him and Tapan Street seem like the two that have a good opportunity to get first run on some of the legitimate late threats.
From a gambling perspective on Cole Battle, the question of whether or not he's good enough, part of that answer is you're not going to have to swallow 5-1. You're going to get good odds. And the other thing for him is, in terms of whether or not he's good enough, is, as you just alluded to, he's fast enough to get into position early. He's not a deep one-run, last-to-first type closer, which is an asset. In my opinion, he feels like a live runner to hit the board for sure. Maybe he runs the race of his life and runs a little bit higher than that. But again, you don't have to swallow 5-1. He's going to be good odds.
That's a great point. And you mentioned how he's quick enough to get into position early. Another thing that he has that's very favorable is he has the ability to settle nicely, and he has good acceleration through the turn to the top of the lane to avoid traffic and get first run.
Turn time. That is an angle in race. We mentioned those ears, LaCara. You can see her ears dancing all over the place.
Yeah, she looks cool.
Her trainer, Mark Cassie, who LaCara figures to be, she's going to be single digits in the Oaks. Good Cheer is going to be steamed hard. She's going to be smoked. I mean, 8-5 on Good Cheer.
I think so, somewhere in that ballpark, right?
Yeah, so I mean, LaCara is going to have to naturally drift up from there. It's not a 20-horse field, so there's some more points to work with. But she'll be single digits, and she figures to be part of the pace.
She figures to be part of the pace. You know, I'm usually pretty loyal with the horses that I've been handicapping throughout their careers. Unfortunately, I think my loyalty is gonna drift away here in the Kentucky Oaks. I like the runner-up effort, Take Charge Milady. I liked her effort better in the Ashland moving forward.
Yeah, that's what the sharps are saying, as one might say. And you heard Brian allude to it earlier in the interview with Caitlin. He needs to give her a better opportunity. They kind of got stopped a little bit. And by the way, that was in that sort of that trickier configuration at Keeneland.
Yeah, you know, some horses just don't excel over that surface, and then they get over the strip here at Churchill Downs, and they really jump up. Did you have any really legitimate excuses for Take Charge Milady and the Honeybee? I know we're looking at LaCara here.
Yeah, I thought she ran fine. I thought there were some things to consider, and it wasn't the ultimate goal, and now she's progressed, and now she's sitting on, in my opinion, the best race that she's going to run this year. So I think Take Charge Milady is a legitimate contender. I put it this way. If she's a higher price than LaCara, I'm taking her 8 days a week.
Right.
I don't mean I'm not going to bet the race.
No, I know. Yeah.
Maybe I'll give Tony $100, or I could just go ahead and throw it out the window. We'll see what.
Hey, I'll take it.
what comes out better as LaCara finishes.
I'll buy drinks at the end of the night with it.
Yeah, there you go. Another look at Admire Daytona, who went the 53.2. You know, I should know.
That's kind of my pace on a treadmill.
Yeah, there you go. What would be a gallop time for 4 furlongs? Like I don't. You know, I'd have to. You know, I'll be ready with that intel tomorrow.
Well, you know, it's looking at it. The intensity is more gallop-like than work-like. What we're accustomed to seeing here.
Yeah. Obviously, you have to record some workouts before you can race in races here stateside. Lots of requirements, so you have to get a published workout. You can't just roll into horse racing without workouts.
Also, if this is by design, then everything's great.
Yeah,
it's when it's not by design, and then they go 53-1, and you're shaking your head.
Yeah, yeah. And like Caitlin has said, do the big, long, lengthy gallops. A lot of trainers here in America will gallop mile and a half. And she was saying that they'll do 2.5 type mile gallops, really building up that foundation. So it was Dreyfrong, right?
Yes.
It was a fast horse.
Yeah, he was very fast. Well, didn't he win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Sprint?
Or I think the Sprint, wasn't it? The Sprint.
Yeah, the Sprint. Yeah, my bad. Yeah.
And then the dam sire Shackelford, who of course
won the Preakness
set the pace in the Derby for a very long time.
And Dreyfrong's sire is Gio Ponte, who was the runner-up in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah.
And a very good turf horse at longer distances.
Yeah, for sure. Admire Daytona. I do like his progression coming out of the starting gate. He had, like I said earlier, he's had some trouble early in his career, but he's developed nicely since then. So, Admire Daytona. A bit of a tough to figure out 53.2.
Yeah.
But if you can figure it out, and you can capitalize on that, or whatever opinions you may or may not have for this year's Oaks and Derby, you owe it to yourself to dive into that handicapping tournament, the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge, where you can take that money and explode it into more of it. TwinSpires.com, of course, the only place you can play this Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. $250,000 on the line.
It's a great tournament. I'm pumped up to see the standings, see the competitors. Obviously, we wish we could be a part of it, but we've got quite a bit on our plate that particular day, so it might be even too much for us to handle. But these tournaments, if you're not familiar with them, they're awesome. I've been talking about it since we've started this. The Pick Six and the betting challenge, these handicapping tournaments, they're awesome. The Pick Six for the will pays when you're alive, and then to see your name rise on the leaderboard, it's a rush.
There's not only the $250,000 available in that Derby Betting Challenge, you can also qualify for the NHC and the BCBC. All sorts of stuff on the line.
And next year's Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge as well.
I hope to be here next year.
I don't think that's going to be an issue.
2026. Be sure to qualify there on the right-hand side. Okay, let's put a bow on this morning. I mean, we still got a ways to go, but every morning it's progression. You're trying to get to the Kentucky Derby and to the Kentucky Oaks. You're trying to progress each and every day. What do you think?
Well, it was awesome. Cole Battle looked great on the racetrack. I don't think we saw enough this morning that can really sway me personally from where I'm, standing. I think journalism deserves top billing. I can't wait for him to get here and we can all see him in person, see his physical prowess, and just see how he's handling the racetrack. And looking forward to it. We're just going to keep going. This weekend, we're going to be really busy with all the works.
Yeah. Journalism race probably goes through him. And Caitlin, we appreciate you handling that 52-degree weather. I know it's rough out there, but you got that ski cap. I thought the coolest part of the morning was Cole Battle sitting there. Actually, he was standing, but you know what I mean. Sitting there and just kind of taking it all in.
That horse, I have become a bigger and bigger fan of every single day. He's a horse that I think is just progressing in the right direction. As I mentioned, he's the type of a horse that has the mental toughness it takes to win the Kentucky Derby. We'll see about the raw talent, but you said it best. He's a horse that kind of has a little bit more tactical speed than people have really given him credit for. So I think he checks a lot of boxes for me in this race. He's a horse that's going to be a live price that I'm definitely interested in using. And I think Admire Daytona is progressing on well. He doesn't do a ton in the mornings when it comes to faster pieces of work, but he's out there a lot more than some of the other Derby horses are. And Travis, I like what you said about the way he's gotten better out of the gates with each and every race. That's something that's very important in a race like the Kentucky Derby, getting out of the gates cleanly, especially if you're a horse that needs to really establish position early on the way he is. And Tony, I have an update for you on journalism. He's slated to arrive here this evening sometime around 7 p.m. So potentially going to be getting our first looks tomorrow at the Kentucky Derby favorite.
He will be the favorite. Thank you, Caitlin. We'll see you throughout the rest of the week. He will be the favorite, probably 5-2, 3-1, and the horse to beat.
Yeah, 5-2 and 3-1. If he does what he's supposed to do, could be kind of generous.
So many questions we have to answer, all these threads and things to figure out, but that's why we're here, and that's what makes this the greatest 2 weeks of the year leading up to the greatest 2 minutes in sports, the Kentucky Derby. Don't forget to join us tomorrow. I'm back with you tomorrow. You're not.
I'm not. I'm back Thursday with you.
Kilroy's in, but rest those pipes, Tony. We'll have fun on Thursday, too. Yeah. See you tomorrow, folks. 6:45. Thanks for joining us this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.